Some mornings I wake up and can't remember whether I'm a Blade Runner or just another part of the city's machinery. Like a thing. Like a literal gear grinding itself down to a nub. No, to dust. Depends on who's asking. Depends on who's listening. On the badge it says Rep Detective. I retire replicants. Retire means I kill them. I'm not afraid of saying it. Are you afraid of hearing it? Rep Detective is what it says on my badge, but on the street they've got other words for me and I have no words for them. That's the law of things. Neither of us are kind. The sky over Sector 5 was burning that low neon bruise it always gets before dawn. Too early for traffic, too late for hope. It wears at you. In small ways. Like that gear. Gear in a clock, turning, doing its job for years, decades, eons. Little by little, particles at a time, grinds itself down to... doesn't matter. It becomes just warped enough to crack, to slip, to give a millimeter. A millimeter is all it needs to throw the rest of the contraption out of sync. And then you can't tell time. Did we ever? The scariest thing for me was when I stopped flinching. Stopped flinching when I heard the explosion of violence coming out of a weapon. I mean, sure, we train not to flinch for our own weapons, but do you know what you have to be on the inside to not flinch when you don't even know if that weapon's pointed at you? Maybe you don't care. I knew this guy when I worked in Sector 2. His name was Tatsuki. He used to say, you know, the real difference, McDaniel, between us and the skin jobs? Circuitry, I said. Microchips. He said, no. We're the only ones that have the handcuffs. Tatsuki was killed by a gun held in his own hand. You know, I stopped wondering whether I'm still on the right side of the line. Maybe there isn't a right side, maybe there isn't a line. Maybe it's just more rainwater flowing down the natural arc of gravity into the gutter, picking up whatever filth's already there and pushing it somewhere else. The brass says it's just another tour, another shift. Keep your head down, McDaniel. Earn that pension. You know, I'm at 13 years. And every year, the pension somehow gets further away. And every year, it seems like I spend more time in these streets. Sometimes I don't remember what the police station looks like. I don't pay attention when I'm there, and I'm barely there, as little as possible. The streets, they're leaning closer to me, like how somebody leans in with something they want to whisper into your ear. Whispers are funny. Depends who's whispering. If it's someone you love, it sends a burst of electricity down your body. But sometimes the person whispering, well, they are people who literally have electricity coursing through their body. You know, people think that Blade Runners are hunters. Truth is, half the time, we're the ones being hunted. Yeah. I mean, by the skin jobs, of course. Scum who sympathize with them. People that don't know what's right or wrong and lost the ability to tell about 3 generations ago when it starved to death, but no. We're hunted by images, moments, sparks of memory we didn't ask for, we couldn't have signed up for. How would we know? Cases we can't close, questions we're not supposed to ask. Things are getting difficult to measure. Too many shadows wearing faces, too many faces hiding in shadows. Officially, I'm sober, not drinking. But make no mistake, I am on a bender of a lifetime. Everything about me is a drunk other than the booze. They think we're hunters. Predator, prey. They run in a circle long enough. Does it really matter? Does it care? Do I care? Do they care? The city doesn't care. Hello, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that little improvisational characterization of Jorma McDaniel, my Blade Runner that I used with the new solo rules that we're going to take a look at today. That's right, Blade Runner just last week as part of their Replicant Rebellion Kickstarter. They're also releasing an asset pack for that. And part of that asset pack is the new solo rules by Sean Tompkin and Matt Click. So I will give you my overview of that, feedback on that, as well as my impressions of Blade Runner. And we'll also take a look at Replicant Rebellion. Now, the solo rules and the asset pack as a whole, as well as Replicant Rebellion, are still in beta release. So they're not finished yet, so just I need to put in that disclaimer. I also need to say that all of the images from the intro are courtesy of Free League Publishing, and none of them are mine. And I imagine that most of them are by Martin Grip, who I believe, lead artist, or Christian Granath. Amazing as always. We'll take a look at some of those as well as some other ones. So I'm going to go through just the primary tools that we have for Blade Runner. The one thing I do not have, or if I do, it's in PDF and I haven't looked at it, is their second case file, Fiery Angels, I think it's called. And that is like what adventures are called, or campaigns in Blade Runner are case files. And that should give you like a pretty good idea of what the tone and objective of this game is. It's an investigative game. So we'll take a look at the materials inside the starter set, as well as take a look at the core book, Replicant Rebellion, and then we'll close out by looking through the solo rules. Oh, I should also say that I sort of like filmed this out of sequence. So the part we're going to transition to next was originally going to be sort of the start of the video before I decided to put whatever the hell that was in front of it. So you'll get used to it. You're all smart cookies. Hello, everybody. As I look through the Blade Runner RPG by Free League, the phrase that keeps coming through my head here is like, who knew? You know, who knew? But about so many things, like who knew that once upon a time, this dystopian world that with unchecked war, greed, perma-dark, perma-saturated in rain, neon, smog-infested police state vision of the future, first from Philip K. Dick, and then wonderfully interpreted by Ridley Scott in the 80s Blade Runner, and then the most recent one with Ryan Gosling, which was fine. Who knew that the actual future, once we got here, that like this terrible place that was being depicted now, like in comparison, to whatever this is, whatever we ended up happening. I don't know what this is, but this seems to capture what did happen. I think I would love to have had the Blade Runner future instead. I would have loved having Tyrell Corp, Wallace Corp, all of it. The Nexus 9 model, the Replicant Wars. I would love to have a Blade Runner knock on my door and say, there's been reports that you might not be human. I would say, come on in. Would you like some coffee? No, of course, I need to. This would be me in this world. I love it. I think that would probably be me. Blade Runner RPG by Free League. One of the last Free League games that I ended up getting. Who knew that I'd be sitting here today solo mode with this? Because I got to be honest, folks, as much as I feel that almost every game could be adapted to solo, there are some games that are a little stickier than others. And I would say of the Free League offerings, Blade Runner was one that I was a holdout on. In fact, little story, when I first started getting into solo play, I had Vazen, Dragonbane, and I saw some like ruby red dice. And I said, whoa, that can't be a Free League dice, right? Because like it must have been before Dragonbane, because I thought all of their games were like the Year Zero D6s. And I took a closer look at them, and I said, wow, this is so interesting. Like there was just this pack of dice, and I found out, okay, these are Blade Runner dice. And then I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? There's a Blade Runner game? Well, I've got to buy the dice, because obviously I'm going to be getting this Blade Runner game sooner or later. And for about 3 years, this was as much of the Blade Runner game that I had. Little aside from my aside, so my double aside, is that as usual, the mathematicians and quantum financiers at Free League, these 4 dice that you could buy in a pack for $23 Or you can get the starter set for about $50, so about double, and you can get 8 dice in there. So um, this one is kind of wild. Like literally, the additional dice pack you get is 4. I'm not even sure how you're supposed to play with that. But it probably is intended to augment the 8 for 12. Now, this is an interesting year 0 system, just to kind of talk a little bit about this. We're going to talk about the dice system. If you, again, have played any year 0 games, Mutant Year Zero, or the OG Coriolis Alien RPG, you're gonna see you probably know the year 0 engine as involving putting together a pool of d6 dice where you're looking for 6s, and usually on the first roll that's all you care about. You usually don't fail or have any risk for failure on the first roll, and so this is a 5, and a 2, and in that system that would be not a success. You and that's intentionally said that way. It's not necessarily like a horrible failure. You just weren't able to do whatever you wanted. If you would like, you can push a roll and retake any of the dice that were not successful and re-roll them. And the risk in most games with that is like here, I pushed, and in some games, this would mean nothing. I could push once, I didn't succeed again. In this game, you can push your roll, but immediately you're going to get either stress or damage depending on the attribute that you're testing. Additionally, when you push, this is where ones become risks, okay? And so 6s or successes in this game are marked by this I, and ones or failures are the origami horse. And it is true in this game, the first roll, you're just looking for 6s. If you push, you're looking to get 6s and avoid ones, okay? And if you do get a more than one success, you can determine how that plays out. Sometimes you just like, say you're using a force check to slam a door. Maybe you slam the door off the hinge, but it usually should be something that helps you or is advantageous or is kind of stylish or is, you know, something that either gives you like just like a little boost either narratively or mechanically. And in this game, the same rule applies. You're trying to get a 6 or higher. That's where a success is. The step dice system is basically the same setup, okay? And understanding that, I think, makes the next parts easier. So in those D6 games, your attributes, which are your 4 core stats, and your skills are going to have a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6. I would say most are like 4 or 5 at the higher end. And that is, you're able to just look at that and say, okay, this is how many dice I get for that attribute. And then I add 2 more for that skill. And in games that like Coriolis, the Third Horizon, you also add gear dice, and you're like, okay, I have this pistol, so that gives me 2 gear dice, and now I have 8 dice, and I'm going to roll all of these and count my successes, right? The way that it always works for your like attributes and skills is they are aligned under your strength. These are all of the skills under that you are going to use strength to augment the roll or whatever. So if you were to roll hand-to-hand combat, you're going to roll your hand-to-hand combat plus your strength. Now you'll notice here, though, we have some letters. Here's all you need to know. A is the best letter. D is the worst. I'm not saying objectively. I think A and D as letters have their merits, but these are what your attributes and skills can be: A, B, C, or D. And remember, our goal is still to roll 6 or higher. Okay, except it's the or higher part that we get here, because if your character has a skill level of D, it means they are untrained. Or if they have an attribute score of D, it means they are feeble. All right, and that those words are misleading. I think they're a bit harsh for what they are, because it's just a standard dice roll. And in fact, all of your skills are baseline at a D, which is untrained, which is kind of weird, I think. I mean, I get it mechanically, but it's like if my character, for instance, has a D in mobility, I'm untrained. Why? I've been on the force for 13 years. I think this is a good example actually of like when there's a little bit of friction between the mechanics, like the engine and the hood, because it's like, well, this is how this scales. We have to sort of name each of these steps, but it's not that big of a deal. But these kind of things do mount up sometime and make it so that people have a little bit of a harder time understanding something. So D is a D6. And C then would be your D8, B is D10, and A, which in terms of attributes means you are extraordinary at this, or in terms of skills, you are elite, okay? And so we talked about that hand-to-hand combat. Let's look at my character sheet here. Anytime you roll a skill, you're going to take the die from the skill and then the die from the corresponding attribute. So hand-to-hand is B, strength is C, and so B is going to be the D10, and then C is going to be the D8. And I'm going to roll both of these, and I'm still trying to get a 6 or higher. And won't you look at that? I got a 6 on here. And the D8 is great because not only is the 6 a success, like it is on the D6, but so is a 7. So is the 8. So I have more chances to roll a success, right? And then the D10, I have even more chances. Plus, I got a success. If I would have rolled those together, I would have had 2 successes, which is really good. And it would mean that I succeeded, and with moxie. Now, you can see that the highest result on here is a 10, and that has 2 eyes. Hello. And that is because, and this is the special part of the step die system, is that 6 or above is a success, 10 or above is 2 successes, which is really nice. And so on this die, you have 6, 7, 8, and 9 for our success, and 10 is 2 successes. So you have a almost 1 out of 2 chance of having a success, and a 10% chance of getting a great success, okay? And then obviously the A, you also have 11 and 12, which you can get 2 successes with. And so this has tremendous odds, right? And so that's why we just pull whatever die it is for the first one. It could be if you have D and 2 Ds, then you just roll 2 D6, right? And here I got a success, but say that I didn't, I would then push the roll. And one thing that we maybe will have to figure out is one of the few ways in this game that you can get more than 2 dice rolled is by somebody helping, like another person in your party helps you. You use their lowest base die, which is usually going to be a D6, and they would add that to your pool. You also do this on when you have advantage. You take your highest dice and you roll 2 copies of it. So if we had this, you would roll, if you had a D12 and a D6 with advantage, you would add another D12, and then you can like choose which of the D12s you're going to take. This is a great roll, and it doesn't matter on that one. And if you have disadvantage, you're usually going to abscond with the base die. So you would just roll, you would just roll a D12. Oh, nice. Success. That's the power of the D12. And we'll have to figure out how to help. How I think I'm going to do that right now. I'm saying in this session, I'll try out a couple things, but the idea I had in my head is pretty arbitrary. I just came up with it. Is that if I want help on a roll, I will determine how likely it is that someone or something could help me in a situation. If it's pretty unlikely but possible, I'll give myself 1. If it's could be, couldn't be, same odds, I'll maybe give 2. And if it's quite likely that someone, something, or some event is going to step in and support me, I'll put 3. And then I'm just going to roll these. And if any of them are successes, then I will re-roll them with my dice as like a helping dice. Because that is, there we go. Thanks a lot. No help. That is something that occasionally does happen in the game. Your teammates help you, right? Because again, it's not like other games where you're just racking up dice and you can pull things in for all kinds of things. You're usually just rolling 2. Again, if you push the roll and you roll a 1, you either get damage or stress. And just pushing the roll, you automatically get 1. If you're a replicant, it's always stress. You don't get damage. And if you're a human, it's damage if you're rolling agility or strength-based roll, and stress for intelligence or empathy. And then you can get another point of stress if you get any fails. Okay. And you can only re-roll like misses. And so you're like, well, why would I re-roll if I got a success? Well, sometimes, especially in combat, you might want like more than just the 1 success that you had. You might want like like for instance, some of the weapons are like automatic or something like that. Additionally, since we're not adding gear dice to this roll, what benefit is adding a weapon? Well, you're going to roll, so say that I rolled firearms, okay? So I have a B in firearms and a C in agility. So that means I'm going to roll a D10 and a D8. And I start with the standard issue PKD 5223 blaster, which has a damage of 2, a crit die of D12. Okay. And basically what this means is that I'm going to roll, and if I succeed, there's a damage of 2, I do 2 damage. If I get more than 1 success, then I have crit. And for each crit, you roll a crit die, whatever one it is. This one is D12. And this is very different than other games, so pay close attention. Other Year Zero games. Normally, you would just kind of like double up your damage or whatever. In this one, we're going to roll, and we got a 9. It doesn't really matter that it has an eye on there, because all we're going to do is we're going to look at what sort of weapon it was. Usually if it's melee, it's crushing, and if it's ranged, it's piercing. And you're going to look at the critical injuries table. And I rolled a 9, so that means I am able to get that high. So if you have a weapon that only has a crit die of 6, you're only going to be able to reach up to these critical injuries, which are not as bad as these ones. And so because this is piercing, and I rolled a 9 with my weapon, I got massive internal organ damage. Is it lethal? Yes. That other person has to do a save within a round, in which case if they do save, they heal in a month. But if not, they are dead instantly, and the effects are you cannot stand upright. Crawling is the only possible mode of movement. That's mostly for if that happens to you. If it was an enemy that I hit with that, I would likely say bye-bye. But so that's a bit different. I think the odds kind of shake out about the same, oddly. I didn't mean that. In fact, I hate myself. So, okay. All right. So let me just say that cleanly really quick. You inflict the damage from the weapon. All right. If you get a crit, you're able to reach higher critical injuries. And I also forgot to mention, for each one above the base, you add +1 to the damage. So that would go from 2 to 3. Lethal things are probably going to be lethal unless there's something narratively or in the, I guess, enemy listing that says that there is immediate first aid nearby. They're either dead or effectively out if you have a crit of internal organ damage. But not all the crits are like that. Some of them are just like, something that's going to leave a mark. And so you get 1 extra damage for each additional eye. All right. And additionally, stress dice, if you are familiar with Alien, Alien is going to add stress dice when you accumulate stress. We are not adding any stress dice here. You will add stress when you push, when you roll a 1 during a push, or anything narratively that is actually extremely stressful, which we'll be able to figure out. That would normally be a game runner responsibility. And you will gain 1 stress per 1 dice that shows 1 on the push. All right. So if you were to roll 1 success and 1 stress on the push, you keep the success, but you take 1 stress. Stress doesn't cancel out anything like that. But there's no like panic or stress dice as there is in Alien, which is a really cool system. This system, I think, isn't as cool as those other ones, but it is pretty clean. Like it is pretty simple. You're pretty much rolling 2, sometimes 3 dice. But there's most of the sort of granularity that you get with all of those big pools of dice. I think that's great, but at the same time, it's probably going to go a lot more quickly here, but we shall see. But why? Why get into it? I mean, sure, it's a lovely book based on a wonderful property that I love very much. I was the guy who was like interested in watching all the different versions, the guy who hated the one narrated by Decker. And even as I was preparing for this video and flipping through this, I was like, I love Blade Runner. I love that it is appreciably better than other cyberpunk properties. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's like one of the cyberpunk properties. So, but why? Because I've normally sort of veered from this because it just didn't seem that easy to solo. Or shall I say, it didn't seem like it could be soloed in a way that kept the core of what it is supposed to be. Okay? Because what it is supposed to be is an investigation game. The adventures for Blade Runner are called case files. And you are cracking a case. And if you've watched my channel for a while, I will often talk about how mysteries and investigations are somewhat resistant to a full solo play approach. Usually they transmute that into some sort of what could be akin to like a scavenger hunt, where you're not actually gathering clues and spreading them out on a table and like trying to think, who could it be? Who's the murderer? Who stole the jewel from the museum? What you're really doing is like checking off a list and saying, okay, now I have 4 clues, and these abstract clues are enough for me to now win the solution. But it doesn't actually involve any sort of like induction, deduction. And I don't think that this necessarily will be able to, because the problem is not one of like craft or creativity. It's one of like rhetorical limits. There is an imbalance of information in a mystery game that requires a game master to know the solution, players to guess it, and a game master to reveal certain secrets at certain intervals. So there probably is a way to do this like once in a game if you kind of do the sealed envelope thing, but that would require a solo play experience that is tailored to the solo player. An example of this might be like those kind of escape room box solo games can do this, where you have to open envelopes and stuff like that, and it's made for that. But outside of that, what you're going to run into is a game where you can solo it using the tools that we have available to us. These Oracle cards. I have some nice cyberpunk ones from Larcenous Designs, and so we can use these. But the problem stood, and so eventually I did get it. I got the starter set. More so than even Vazen or Tales from the Loop, this really shows you that the full immersion enjoyment of the game is one in which there is. Sorry, this thing is very tight. 1 second. Yeah, so in addition to those 8 dice, you're going to get some pre-gen sheets, which we'll probably use, and nice case file, Electric Dreams, and I think, 84-page rulebook, 80-page rulebook. Very nice. And this is like follows the pattern of the starter set rulebooks. An amazing map of Los Angeles. This is truly the only thing that has the words Los Angeles on it in my life that I've ever liked. And lots of other like location maps, very high quality. This is definitely a starter set that you're going to feel really good about putting down the scratch for it, because you're just getting such a nice selection of things, and everything is beautiful, well made. Forever do I hope freely you continue this, because this is not just something nice. It is one of the biggest reasons why I love your games, is because of that quality. And then this thing right here, though, the RDU, is really going to put in focus like how important or how inviolable the normal process of the case is. Now, I'm not going to show you everything here, because these are literally the clues that if you were to ever play Blade Runner, these would be the ones that you would be sort of drip fed by the GM. But you have stuff like this, like the classic notes that are left for people. I guess that's a poem. Oh, this is your sheet that shows the rhythm of the game. You're filling out shift reports for LAPD, although you are a Blade Runner, so technically you have like jurisdiction over everything. You have a full newspaper. These are really cool. These magazine covers, right? And then right here, this is some different paraphernalia that is actual like clues you might find at a scene, but it's these like full-sized pictures. And this isn't the type of thing where you might get something like this when you're playing in a group. The GM will pass around something, and it will be some letter. It'll say, "Oh, dearest Morna, I miss you and promise that what I'm working on in my laboratory will be a boon for all humanity." And you kind of read that as a player. You go, okay, cool. This is evidence, dude. Like, these are... You need to look at these. You need to put these up on the wall and lose sleep. And, your spouse has to, "Come to bed, honey." "No, I can't. Not while these scumbags are out here," right? I mean, yeah, you're going to be looking at mugshots and fingerprints and all of this stuff that you're going to put together a solution for. And again, if you're the one that sets up that solution, as you might be in solo play, it's, as I always say, hard to both know what direction you're going in as well as not know. And if you think that through, if you think for a second right now, if you've never heard me talk about this before, which is hard to believe, because I never shut up, but if you've if you're like, no, 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 what you can do is just make some clues. It's like, yeah, okay. How do you, okay, so say that you gather clues, and then at the end you open the sealed envelope, and it has nothing to do with the clues that you gathered. It has nothing to do with the people who you talk to. So what I'm saying is, you cannot have a mystery that has an objective, singular solution. Now, what you can do, and it's a different kind of fun, but it is fun, is you can flip the funnel of uh, induction replacing deduction, right? So rather than playing the game as you would as a group, which is gathering this wide net of data and sort of narrowing it down to the tip of the funnel, you're going to start at the tip of the funnel, and you're going to know that the solution, it it doesn't it doesn't actually exist, but you're going to play with the conviction that it does. And then as you gather evidence, you're still going to cast that net, but as you gather that and as it widens, you're going to be formulating the solution as you go along, because more and more things are going to fit what it is. And then at the end, you're going to say, aha, it must be, Mr. Plum in the study with the candlestick, but you created that solution. So yes, you're not able to get like the Kaiser Sose verbal kin to Chaz Palminteri dropping his coffee cup on the floor. And if you don't know what I'm saying by that, you're so lucky. I want you to watch a movie called Usual Suspects, which I doubt there's anyone still checking that out for the first time, if only to see Benicio del Toro in the lineup. Anyways, I forgot to mention also, and this is what really changes the home run of this starter set into a grand slam breakfast, is not only are you going to get the normal sort of supply of Free League initiative cards, because this is how often initiative is happening, you're also going to get all of these other cards. Okay, not worth it. Some of them are mugshots. Mugshots A, B, C, and D. Oh, I was thinking that this was the mugshot, so I'm like, there's this one and this one. Yeah, lots of copies now. You get like these different mugshots of individuals, which is excellent for envisioning like an NPC or the game. They're very vivid. They're very good. Take a good look, folks. This is probably the last mugshot you'll ever see in a tabletop game that wasn't just created by AI. I hope what I just said is not true. But I don't know. Tilly Norwood. All I have to say. And if you don't know who Tilly Norwood is, you're in luck. I want you to go watch Usual Suspects. And then the rest of these are for chases, which is a really cool feature in this game. And there's all manner of them. So you have like different aerial chase obstacles that can happen while you're chasing, foot chase obstacles, different chase maneuvers to sort of like see what each of the person is doing. If you wanted to, you can go back and forth between the pursuer and the, I guess they call it the prey. It's kind of weird to think of it like that. And then obstacles for each. So what you could really do here is make a deck with whatever type of chase it is, and maybe it involves multiple things. You know, maybe the car chase goes on until gas runs out or you crash, and then it's a foot chase. But you can then take these chase maneuvers and take all of that and shuffle it into a deck, and then pull that out one after another to see like what the beats of it are. Yeah, these are ground chase obstacles as well. So yeah, very cool. These cards are very nice and very high quality. It is a bit weird in that they're, for some reason, they're high friction. Like they're not separating very well. But that's how you know. That's how you know it's quality, when the cards feel so good about each other. All right, let me clear this up a bit. And you can sort of see here, unfortunately, this was, again, the era in Free League where there must have been a flash sale on black glossy paper, because you had like Coriolis, the original Alien. This does a lot better job. And then the new major expansion, Replicant Rebellion, which is, get to that in a minute, still available on BackerKit for late pledge. That takes it to a whole new level. They've actually pulled off somehow like the dark background by putting, not actually, but like putting a stronger backlight behind the text. That's what it looks like. You can see here, this is really laying out, this is the case file, like how the mysteries, crime scene stuff is compiled in a normal case file. It is very sequenced. You know, there's even a list or a table that shows you how the investigation would proceed based on the number of player characters there are. Now, there is one here for one player character, but that would be like one player character and a GM, and it lists like when they're going to meet these people, etc. Some nice tables in here. Downtime events for home, downtime events in the street. But mostly this is going to be a resource that you would use if you were actually playing this. But it is pretty. Now, even though we do have some nice tables, some nice systems here, we're going to be using the, like I said, the step dice system for the Year Zero system. And there's some nice little, like, it is a stress system, but there's some nice little additions here. In addition to the chases, there is a system for, like, you can call in things to headquarters and get resources, like put out an all points bulletin, a warrant, and there's checks for these different things. So some unique systems in place that leads to some surprises, right? Because that's always kind of the fear with a Year Zero game is like, okay, is this just like the other Year Zero system I just played, but with a different skin? No, this is definitely going to be Blade Runner, and this is definitely a project that is deeply loved as Thomas Harenstam, who is like the head of Free League, takes on the I think either creative director or art director for both this book and Replicant Rebellion. But again, who cares? And I shouldn't make a blanket statement. There are solo playthroughs on YouTube, but for me, it has not felt solo friendly until now, because in March, yeah, he's the lead game designer, and then Martin Grip is the lead artist. You have Christian Granath, who does awesome graphic design, and Bull Berman. Oh, Bull used to work there. The email still comes up as Bull. And then we have the GM screen here. So you got all the attribute scores, the critical stress effects, the LAPD resources, and then critical injuries. Two of them. Okay, so in March, there was a Kickstarter for Replicant Rebellion, and this is not a reboot. It's not like Great Dark is to Third Horizon and Coriolis. It is not like it is, I guess, an adventure, but it's bigger than that, and they use the term major expansion. And so major expansions are a term that Free League uses when the supplement is being put out that is more than just a setting or an adventure. It will often be either a completely or nearly complete standalone book. For instance, Mutant Year Zero, there's plenty of expansions that are adventures and settings, and they'll have like new characters and stuff. Elysium, what was the Ad Astra, but then there's also GenLab Alpha, and GenLab Alpha was more than just one of these add-ons because it had different rule systems, a whole faction of like the mutant animal players you could play, and it really tightened up and reproduced in full the rules, so you could really like buy GenLab Alpha and play Mutant Year Zero. And so that's what this is going to be. Another example of, I would say, maybe Moria is a more complete supplement, and then there are also like other One Ring supplements. There was one other, but what was I looking at here? Oh, Twilight 2000 is about to have that. They're about to have a sort of, again, it's not a new edition, but I think the Twilight 2000 one is called Operation Reset. So that is pretty obvious. Oh, right. Tales from the Loop and like Things from the Flood. Things from the Flood is really an extension of Tales from the Loop, but it was a complete rule set. Anyways, so let me bring this up. Yeah, so the first, and I'm certain that this would have been fully funded and within the same day. So like May 2024, and then that unlocks the first stretch goal. And again, I followed this like tentatively. These standees looked really cool for the stretch goals and stuff, but it was something that I was on the fence about. I did back it, and then I unbacked it, and then I backed it, and because of that, unfortunately, I didn't get the beta PDF for Replicant Rebellion, so I can't show that yet. Wow, so Free League gets the Johnny on the Spot award for the weekend here. I checked my mailbox during like a pause in the video, and they had sent the PDF. And a little bit of a pro tip with that: if you do a late pledge for either Replicant Rebellion or the asset pack, just know that they sent all of that out in like a wave of you'll get it through Drive-Thru RPG, but they sent that out to people who were backing, I think it was November 14th or something, on that day. And so if you do a late pledge and want the beta version of the PDF, I'm sure they're going to release another beta version of it soon, or maybe even the final edition. But if you do back it, it's not going to automatically send to you because they're sending it through Drive-Thru. So just send them an email to the Free League support email address, and they should send it to you. I think. I don't think I was getting special treatment or anything like that. I think I just had backed it, and so I got the PDF. All right, so now that we have it, I'll just delete what I had done and do something different. No problem. Nobody appreciates my work anyway. So Replicant Rebellion is like a major expansion, which is a demarcation that Free League uses when it has like a more substantial setting / adventure that introduces new rules and functions as like a standalone sequel. It's not necessarily like a new addition, but for instance, GenLab Alpha or Mechatron for Mutant Year Zero, Moria might be in this category. It will usually be a version of the rule set that can be used on its own. Things from the Flood is this to Tales from the Loop, or is it Things in the Flood? I always forget. But yeah, so it's pretty much in terms of like layout and design and everything, pretty much the same. This is like Replicant Rebellion here, and the one thing that a lot of people talk about for Replicant Rebellion is that they have Johan Noor provide these kind of, they call them interstitials, which look better when you have this laid out here, but they are these, they're not, they're sort of 2-page spreads that do a great job of breaking up the format of the book which I think, again, as I talked about with Alien, this is important to have a diversity of page background colors in darker uh, color themed books. You know, like Alien, the first Coriolis, Blade Runner, the pages are set, you know, in a very dark background here. And what can happen if you don't add like a nice diversity of backgrounds and stuff like this is that it becomes quite monotonous and it becomes like a trial to make it through. And so I think Blade Runner, much more than the original Alien, did a good job of breaking that up. And I think Replicant Rebellion does a good job as well. And then these were much talked about. Johan Noor of Merc Borg was able to add some of these. I'm not sure what to call them. They call them interstitials, but they are kind of pieces that are tone poems. They have some intersection with the game. They're going to be quite immersive, and um, uh, many of them violate margin rules, as is Johan Noor's style and everything like that. So they look really cool. But what I really appreciate is Martin Grip is the lead artist on this, and Christian Granith does graphic design. And what I found interesting, and I think it only happened because I was looking a lot at these side by side, is as you go through, like this being the core book here, as you go through, so you have this picture here from the core book, and we see probably this is a Blade Runner, two Blade Runners standing up over a replicant that they have retired, and the focus of the picture is like that investigation. Now, uh, the first core book is about, as I said, being a Blade Runner. The second book is you're a member of this rebellion group, the Replicant rebellion group, who is seeking to get recognized as sort of full people. And so it's going to be a very different type of game. It's not going to be an investigation, really, which is interesting. We'll come back to that. But what this is page 17 that you're looking at right here in the core book. Check out page 17 in Replicant Rebellion. So it's almost like Martin Grip made these series of images that, like, you shift the focus, you shift the camera, and suddenly you're like, oh yeah, this like pile of jacket and pants and body here, that was a person who was just was killed, right? This investigation is kind of a de naturalization in as far as that term. I know that term probably means something else, but this is um, the dehumanization, I should say, right? That's a dehumanization of that. But so this is a good example of how these pictures fit together. But there are some of them that match up like this, and I can't be sure. It just, maybe I was started looking for it and I saw it more. But there were some of them that actually felt like the painting, as it were, in the first book was only half the painting. And then you look over at the other side of the painting and you're like, oh yeah, this was a full painting that also showed what was happening on the other side of things. I'll try to find a quick example of that. This is not an art criticism video. I just thought it was interesting. Here's one from the core book of like just sort of a pan-cultural fusion from the Ridley Scott vision of there's a line in the original Blade Runner where he says Monsieur, and then calls a cab in Hungarian and then says bitte, like please. So 3 languages in one sentence. So it's this fusion here. And then as you look at the Replicant Rebellion book, you have this perspective of this guy here wearing a hat, and then this might, if you look at the street, kind of the same sort of. Now this could be any street. I'm, like I said, I might just be seeing it, but it's just turning the camera and seeing, okay, we have really 2 points of view going on here and 2 people who are the heroes of their stories. The reason I even started thinking about this was just because of one picture that literally was a shift over. So this being the core book, and under it is the backbone of industry, the Tyrell Corporation, right? Which Blade Runners are most certainly tasked with protecting the assets of whatever megacorp is sort of owns Los Angeles at that time, whether it's Tyrell Corp or Wallace Corp. And then as we shift over to Replicant Rebellion, we have Tyrell Topples, and this is like just a full embodiment of this half image here. So interesting stuff, and I think that pretty well summarizes how Replicant Rebellion goes. It was interesting to read through it because the play loop of the core game definitely makes a lot of sense. A lot of the more interesting, unique mechanics, like every year Zero game will introduce some unique mechanics to vary it up and not just make it the sort of run-of-the-mill year zero system. And besides the chase sequences, there's also like very much you're playing part of the LAPD, and so you like call in things. You need a warrant, you need like medical transport, you need inventory switch, right? Like people can you have to call that in over your radio or your communicator or whatever. And you are also collecting evidence, and you are interviewing people, and you are administering the Voight-Kampff test to see if someone's a replicant. These are things that make sense. There's an order to them. There's a play loop. In Replicant Rebellion, this is not what you're doing. And so initially, you're like playing in the underground, and that is you are either a replicant or replicant sympathizer who is working to destabilize government corporations. You're running away from the Blade Runners, trying to escape detection. And so the play loop becomes less clear. It becomes more open. But what was exciting about that to me was I said, okay, now we have these solo rules that just got like released last week. Now I said this makes sense because we'll be able to play as a part of this underground where we can exist in this world, and we don't have to try to figure out how to do this investigation. Okay, so now going to the solo rules. You are a Blade Runner. So this is an interesting choice. This is from the asset pack, and the asset pack is going to have a set of tools, like these cards and everything are to be played. Sorry, all of these assets are like the same kind. Doesn't that look like Josh Brolin? They're to be the same kind of assets that came in the starter pack, but they're new places that conform to the Replicant Rebellion locations. Like there's, I think, the courtroom is where their one of the adventures takes place. If I'm not, am I looking at the right? Oh, you know what? I might be looking at the original stuff. One second. No, I'm looking at the right stuff. So yeah, this is the like the photos. Again, I don't want to show all of this, but these are the like the high res photos that you'd be given, the same ones that are part of the core game. And there's a different newspaper, right? Because it's like a year later. Oh, here, yeah, these are the locations from the next one. The protein farm, BB's bar. In terms of like the design, almost everything is the same, other than they put more of these kind of neon signs around the core book and stuff, which I think is nice. Anything to put splash of colors and to brighten it up. It also has a kind of more backlit illumination to it, which I also think works well. This is a really nice cheat sheet that I found. I'm going to put the link to this as well. They must be British, because who would go through all the trouble spelling it like that? Maneuverability? Come now. That can't be right. Maneou? No. You guys spell it like that? So yeah, the solo rules are 100 and... Or sorry, man, that would be amazing. They're 21 pages. And a lot of it is going to be like stuff from the core book that is just edited to match, having one player or limiting certain capabilities. And I will say that the true value of this solo tool is in the way that it organizes the information and just the clarity by which it does give um, clear mechanical directions to how things are going to go. Good usage of clocks, good usage of um, the like how to set up and pursue the case file and like what you're gonna do every day. And other than like trust your gut here and some other places where it's just necessary to say things such as this, I think a mark of a good solo supplement is um, the least amount of times that the supplement says, yeah, just do whatever's good with you. Because I have literally seen solo like games that say, yeah, they have solo rules, and the solo rules are like, yeah, so here you roll a d6, six is yes, one is no, and then whatever you want to do, you can just do it kind of alone. And it's like, wow, thanks. You mean I can play pretend? I've known how to do that since I was 3. So it's nice when we see just thought given to how like you're gonna work the case, right? And it even shows this investigation procedure. Um, my I have a little bit of a recommendation because this is the daily in and out investigation procedure. But the way that they have this set up here is you actually sit through the briefing with what's his name, deputy. It's Holden. Yeah, I think it's deputy chief Holden. And so Holden's going to come in, and because it's like a police briefing, it is required, I think, by like uh, everyone in charge of script writing and authorship for the whole world that the joke that must be said by the deputy chief is always, all right, ladies, listen up. And then it's only like, not everyone there is a lady and everyone has a good laugh. And then someone whose name is always like Ramirez or Riley is going to be like something about the chief's mother, which is a bit too insulting. But then he's going to say, watch it, Riley. And anyway, so that's how the brief will start, in my opinion. That's not my actual advice. My actual advice is it says to imagine the briefing and ask questions. Um, if you do that, your questions will be a bit hollow. If you try to uh, uh, improvisationally come up with like the briefing room and then deliver the briefing, your questions are going to be sort of like the same caliber of questions that happen at the end of an interview when the interviewer goes, so do you have any questions for me? And the applicant makes up this question that nobody in the world thinks they're actually interested in. Yeah, I was wondering if you feel as though you are comfortable here working as part of this team, and if you feel supported and have access to mentors. If somebody says that to you, you need to scan them to see if they're a replicant. But what I would say is write out bullet points of the whole briefing before you actually like press play in your mind's eye. Summon the case. There are tools to summon the case both here in this solo resource as well as in the core book. And then once you have the bullets of like how this is going to look, then actually be like Deputy Chief Holden, deliver the briefing, and then ask questions, because then the questions you ask are going to be poignant because they're going to be developed out of a need for information, and then use oracles to decide whether Holden knows that information or not, or you trust your gut, right? If there's certain parts of this where you're like, well, it probably doesn't know that yet, because that way you're going to actually start thinking about investigating this crime before you have to start doing it. And this is the kind of pre-work that helps you to hit the ground running when you actually solo play. Otherwise, you're going to be hit with the solo scaries where suddenly you made your character, you made the briefing, and then it's like, all right, the first day of the rest of my life. And then you go into your squad car or your Blade Runner spinner, as they're called, and you just cry, you know? And then your son sees you, he loses respect for you. Um, trust me, it's bad. Okay, so I wanted to just briefly look at the rest of this stuff, but then I actually wanted to try to go through this for a little bit. I'm going to either use, I think, I'll use a pregen as a template, and maybe I'll change up a couple things just to not spend forever on character creation, because when I do that, it's like 45 minutes character creation, 5 minutes solo play. I would like to have that be opposite here. But I'm just going to try to use some of these mechanics and see how they roll, because those of you who watch the channel, you know that a week or so back, I did a rating and ranking of all of the Free League games, and there were 4 of them slash 5 that I hadn't fully played enough or at all to have an opinion of them. And so the plan was over the next few months to play those out and then redo the rankings. And those of you who left comments regarding the One Ring grade, it was because of the criteria I used. And I understand that you want to throw me into Mount Doom. Please let me, I can understand when I'm being emotionally blackmailed. I will rise to the blackmail. I will give in to the pressure, and I will change the grade. That's all I'll say. I will change the grade. You'll have to watch. But yeah, I wanted to play this out enough just to get a good sense of it. Really nice list of scene categories here, the types of things that you're going to be doing. And I would say that this page right here, page 7, is a great anchor point for this. You should be coming back to this whenever you go, all right, well, what the hell do I do next? This is going to be everything you're going to do as a Blade Runner. Pull up some perp, start questioning them. Go to your informant, whatever it is. Different ways of doing scene checks, question checks, skill rolls, crits, NPCs, gathering clues, following leads. The system here is not bad. And I do think it's pretty well developed here. Again, a lot of this stuff is just sort of lifted from the core book, but then sandpapered into something more usable for solo. But this was refreshing. It's pretty good here how we have this hypotheses, and then we can do checks against them. Yes, it still is fundamentally like, I have 1 clue. Is 1 clue enough? No, how about 2? But it abstracts it enough where it doesn't feel as rote and monotonous. And then also just ways to implement these kind of things. There is always that like temptation from the void here that sneaks up in this every once in a while. Like, maybe you could just journal it out. No. We're not going to take the journaling escape hatch here, where it's like, oh yeah, instead of doing combat, just journal. Like, imagine you fighting somebody and then just like write how many punches there. No, we're gonna play the mechanics of it. All right, we're not taking the journaling escape pod here. Otherwise, yeah, this is where we really get to the solo specific tools that are handcrafted for this, and they're very good. So this starts on page 15. We have a cipher table, which is like the basic way to summon any and all inputs, case briefings, clues, evidence, NPC traits, location traits, and then event tables are good. There's also really good, more specific event tables inside the core book, so that if you want like something built out rather than summoning something up from, vague details into something. I like to use like cipher tables to come up with that kind of stuff, or oracle cards. I have the Game Master's Apprentice, like cyberpunk ones here if we need them. But lots of good tools. And then here is just like our case log report. Now, interestingly enough, I went to the core book looking for tables and seeing like what they have in common. For instance, the promotion system is very similar. It's just almost like changing some of the tense from sentences, or like changing, adding an S, or saying your character rather than your group. But you'll see that a lot of these same tables are already in the core book. And they're modified, but like here is a way we can look up NPCs, political machinations. And it really was cross-referencing this where I was like, damn, there's already a lot of great stuff here. And that's when I found this little cutout here. It says it's not about the case. Since the game places so much focus on the investigation itself with clues, handouts, and tracking of time, you might be led to believe that the point of the game is to solve cases. It is not. The core purpose of the game is to confront the player characters with challenging personal and moral dilemmas, letting them ask themselves what makes them who they are. For this to work, don't make the clues of the case file too hard to find. It's only after the truth has been revealed that you will reach the essence of playing the Blade Runner RPG. And of course, you know, of course this is what it's about. It's always about the relationships. That is really what makes the game. Even in OSR games, right? It's about the relationship of your players and the choices they make, your player characters and how they play off each other. It's between you and your player character. It's between you and you. It's between your player character and their stats and the person that they're supposed to be versus like who you feel like you want them to be. It's talking to NPCs, it's companions, it's adversaries. It's all about those relationships. And while everybody doesn't have to care about each other, they have to be invested in each other, right? If you make them invested, if they care, if there's stakes, if it matters to the player characters what happens next, a lot of this stuff that we are like, how do I do it? It will flow naturally because we know what that feels like to just be able to engage in communication, be in that relationship. And so I'm not going to worry too much about like the case. We'll see what comes of that. I'm going to think more about like my role. I am a Blade Runner. What does that mean? What's my motivation, etc. The solo mode here, like I said, written by Sean Tompkin and Matt Click, really nice. 21 pages. It does. Its strength is really found in like the last 5 pages is where we're gonna see like the most creative, innovative sort of ideas that are pulled in by the authors. It's gonna have this cipher. Where can I find that? Perfect. Oh, there we go. So yeah, this is the cipher table that we use as sort of a general oracle. The core book is, like I said, it's going to have this rather more comprehensive case file generator. So the solo one here has basically these 4. You're going to have assignment, relevance, complication, and personal hook. And to be honest, this personal hook is not a table I'd use every time. I think it becomes quite like, what's the word, maudlin or something. Like if everything reminds me of, oh, that's just like my grandmother. That's just like my great grandmother. But nevertheless, I think it's good for the first case we generate, especially. And the core book one is going to have 9 tables with a theme, a more specific assignment that's very much spelled out rather than just like 1 or 2 word inputs. A huge, excellent NPC table, locations, and then clues are part of this case file, which there is also a clues table in the solo mode. Twist, final confrontation, mood pieces. So, or sorry, this is 8 tables. So this is for a GM. And I think the best way to use these solo rules is really in concert with the core book, pulling from that when you need an NPC, a specific location, a specific case. But again, the strength here is not so much like new ideas that like there's no cracking of any code here. There are some legitimately good like approaches here mechanically. But what I think they did here is they just wrote a really solid supplement, and they also a lot of what's in this solo supplement is stuff actually like tables and stuff actually pulled from the core book, but then slightly shifted so that it better applies to solo play, excludes the things that have to do with like teammates and stuff like that. And so and then it just organizes it really well, and it's very, very specific about like how you do every step of this, and it gives you mechanics. There are, of course, as there are in every solo supplement, a few instances of like, yeah, trust your gut, do what feels right. And in some ways, the strength of a solo supplement is like how how rare that is said, but it is impossible to not say that sometimes because, of course, we're dealing with mechanics that are going to be partially derived from tables, even with a GM, and then sometimes the GM is just going to make a decision. And PSA, we always have to remember that solo play is always explained or advertised as you play the player and the GM. And I think sometimes people forget the GM part of it. They just want to play. And so when they have to switch into that GM mode, they're like, oh, well, this isn't fun. Like, what? Well, we have to, or that's what we're doing, right? And so not everything can be derived by a table. And sometimes we can become over-reliant on them, which is why I think it's good here that we only have 4 of these case generators. Breaking news, I partially disagree with what I said in that part of the video. I'm sorry, I shouldn't keep doing this, but we do become like over-reliant on them in a certain way when we start undermining our ability to like make decisions, come up with ideas, infuse our own notions. Like we never want to be in a place where we think of something cool and then say, but you know what, the table said this or that. Like, no, absolutely not. It's just a table. You could jump on a table if you want, right? Pour some sugar on me on the old jukebox and jump on a table by yourself, become the biggest loser in the world. No, but I do think we can become over-reliant just in terms of like maybe like less trusting of ourselves. However, sometimes we don't use the tools that are there. And this is a great example, this scene categories page here. This is filled with 12 different types of scenes, which pretty much like captures the entirety of the Blade Runner experience. Okay. And so don't be afraid to utilize these in between each scene to just say, okay, what is going to happen next here? And the reason is there's a crossing of data lines that happens during play, where the moment where we become more invested in our story is also naturally the point where we start to get like a little bit more mentally fatigued. Not fatigued enough where we're like sick of it and want to throw it away, but just because we've been coming up with good ideas. And especially if you start a session and have to generate a character and a backstory, that's why it's so hard to move from character generation to that first scene, and why we character generate and then leave it at that so often. And so I think a good way to explore the rest of this solo supplement here is what I'm going to do is I'll like show you what's under the hood by generating a case and then delivering it at the end of the video. And then why don't you try, if you're a person that wants to play this and you're excited about doing this, and especially if you have a hard time starting, let me handle that part. Take my case, okay? Pretend that I'm Deputy Chief Holden actually giving you the case, and then start there. And whenever you are about to move from one shift to the next, right, the 4 shifts in this game in a day, just look at this list or roll on it and say, okay, what comes next? What would make the most sense? Am I going to confront somebody, infiltrate, pursue? Right column has some skill checks there. Use these tools. This isn't like a novice way to play. This is an expert way to play because you're using the tools that are provided. We need to lower the amount of like computing that we do with the little stuff. Like use these tables to seed your mind and then just like go ahead and bloom when we're actually progressing the story forward. All right. So I'll build up a case here using the solo tools, and I'll probably yak a bit about some other stuff, but we'll get there. I'm going to roll this up here and just get some inputs, and then I'm going to map out like the briefing. I'm going to put it to bullet points, and then I'm going to actually deliver it as Deputy Chief Holden, because it does direct you to like picture yourself in the briefing room and then ask questions. I tried that originally, like in real time as I was rolling it up. I kind of acted it out, partially out loud, partially in my head. And then the questions I asked were not poignant because they were sort of like end of interview questions where you're supposed to ask the people interviewing you like a question, but it can't possibly be something you're actually interested in. Like, oh, do you feel like there's opportunities for mentorship? You're like, whatever. I mean, that's not a bad question, but no one who's interviewing who's 22 really cares about that. But anyways, in order for the questions to be poignant, the method I use is I take these clues that we get from this table, I write them out, and then I go back and deliver them. And then I hear them being said rather than just like getting them for the first time. I hear them being said. I see myself sitting there. And then suddenly, me asking questions is not about some like mechanical milestone that I'm meeting and crossing. Instead, I'm actually hearing this, and my questions are arising out of need and ignorance. I need to know this stuff. And then we can use the different, probably just like the fate mill or whatever, to determine if that, if my questions can even be answered or whatever to their fullest extent. So, really quick here, I'm just going to roll, and we'll do that together. And then I will write out, I'll talk it out a bit just to say like what these ideas mean to me. Then I'll pause to write them out, and then I'll come back to deliver the briefing. Okay, so let's get a little bit of dice rolling real estate here. All right, been a while since I tried this approach here. So, all right, case briefing assignment. So first roll is 1 through 6. So roll 6. All right, and then what is it? A D10. Okay. 4. So that one is rebellion. Okay. So that is the rebellion, or just like a case of extremism. And then the relevance. Well, I bet you I know what the relevance is going to be. This is a D12. And then 11 involves Wallace Corp interests. Okay, so Wallace Corp in this game takes place in 2037. So like the Ryan Gosling Blade Runner, that takes place in what is it, 2049? I forgot what year it was. It's like 2048 or 49. And then so this one is between those two movies, and it's 2037. And so Wallace Corp is reintroducing the Nexus 9s, which people are very uneasy about having like replicants out and about again. But he's like, no, the first thing they're going to do is like hunt down and kill all the other replicants. And so there's a new wave of extremism. But people are more reassured because they feel like these new replicants are have tighter, or the same thing they've been told 5 times. It's always ended poorly. But once Tyrell Corp collapsed, Wallace took all their interests and became somewhat of a savior because he released all of their like food bioengineering patents, and that basically the whole globe was on the brink of famine. So they're pretty trusting of Wallace. And in the movie, he plays a he is played by, in 2049 or 8, played by unjokerfied Jared Leto. All right, so now we have a initial complication. 5, compromised crime scene or evidence, so some tampering. And then we'll check out what the personal hook is here. We'll see if that comes into play right away or what. Oops. 4. Involves fellow investigator. Okay. So I'm going to pop over to the core book here just to see if we can get a little bit more information here. Oh yeah, let's get a location. So first we'll go to see what sector it's in. There's 1, 2, 4, 5, 9, or 12. If it's beyond downtown, like there's not many places we can go other than, I mean, we can go anywhere we want, but as what's listed, like San Diego is just a city that is basically a trash pile, like it's a wasteland that people live on. So we'll see what we get here is a D8 and beyond downtown. Okay, this will be interesting. I don't know much about this area, so I'll try my best. And then if we're going into Sector 8, does it even have anything? And maybe if we'll get an interstitial location if we want to like have somewhere to stop to talk to a perp or something like that. So this one is just going to be a 6. And a 1. The Energy Empire. Okay, so this is going to be a lot of these like wind farms and biodiesel and stuff. And then it's going to be transport hub. Yeah, so again, in the most recent movie, like the start of it, where Ryan Gosling is landing his car, and then what's his name, Batista from WWE is like some farmer there. That's the inciting incident. Let's also find another location that maybe we can stop to talk to somebody or figure something out on the way there. 7 LAX. All right. So what do we got at LAX airport here? Okay, D6. 1 LAX proper and 5 customs. Okay. All right. So I guess just to review here, and I'll write all this up and then deliver the briefing. But essentially, we have, what was it here? Rebellion or extremism, and it involves Wallace Corp interests and compromised crime scene. And the personal hook is that it involves a fellow investigator or mentor, and we can use the clues when we need to, but it's going to be at the Energy Empire. So I'm going to just read up a little bit on that and tell you anything interesting that I get just from whatever book it's in, more descriptively, and then I'll write up the bullet points, and then I'm just going to deliver it not as bullet points but as a briefing, like I will talk through it. So when I come back, we'll just start. I read about the Energy Empire. Basically, it's just kind of what we said. It's like a lot of it's outside of LA, but like the exurbs, so the ring of the city. It's where a lot of the bioengineered food is coming from. Long rows of just like farms, and probably not the farms that we think of. Rows and rows of pods that are kind of mini biome ecosystems that they'll grow whatever sort of, I'm sure it's like wheat or soy or something like that. And at LAX, we have something that's happening in customs, and there is signs of or instances of extremism and rebellion that has something to do with like the interests of Wallace Corp. And there was the twist or the wrinkle is that it involves somebody that we know, and this person was like what is it, like a colleague or mentor? I forgot exactly what it said here. They were wasn't a fellow investigator or mentor, so it's probably like a Blade Runner or somebody else in the office. Okay, so I'm obviously thinking right now. I'm just kind of sketching out like beats here. I'm not. I'm gonna wait till I hear like the briefing to give it some more form. But I'm thinking there's got to be some sort of extremist group, right? There's something different about them. Otherwise, it would just be like business as usual. And they have activities around this energy empire, which is probably confusing because it's like, what the hell are they doing? Like, are they going to try to, blow up the barley crops or whatever? But one thing I did see in the book about it is like very labyrinthine, and that also, in addition to food, it's also going to be a place where biomass is used for power supply, and they also receive off-world fuel shipments, and then they do like recycling, and there's also like volatile chemicals. I don't know if that's true or if I just made that up, but who cares? And then volatile electrical grids, and that's probably going to feed a large percentage of the energy supply for the city. So we're thinking that there's been maybe some like brownouts lately, and so they're suspecting that there's some activity there, and that they've wised up, and their tactics are now sort of like trying to bring things down systemically. I'm gonna have to think of the Wallace Corp connection. What if he's okay? So what if Wallace is like putting pressure, or probably not Wallace, but somebody from there, and they think that it's they think they're trying to steal their very expensive coolant labs. They're trying to steal their coolant, and that seems absurd, but it's also something about that might be a little bit suspicious. Like, why are they so worried about somebody going into like this area? Maybe they're just trying to cover up for something that they don't want us to know about, like what's going on there. So we're thinking it's got to be replicants. They've been active. A lot of them have gone out to this exurb area to try to like seek refuge from the highly patrolled city. And we're going to go to LAX. And LAX, there's something there about customs. Oh, I've got it. Okay. The customs people have this is very good. Okay. They have a tool that can detect something they use to like check customs. We can use this tool. it's an inspection, like those little temperature, like thermometer guns that they use like on people's heads for grocery stores and stuff, that give you about a 6 degrees off of the correct temperature. But these detect like any coolant leaks, but also they'll be able to see like if there's been coolant anywhere for I am probably humiliating myself because I don't know anything about coolant, so I'm hoping that what I'm saying could even possibly be plausible. But because they use this to see if there's like different drugs or different bioorganic stuff that's being shipped in shipments, we're going to go to LAX to talk to customs, but they'll say maybe, well, if you're going to use our device, this is like a very expensive device, we need to send somebody from our team with you. All right, that's good. I hate that I have to find somebody from customs, but I know that that'll be useful both to like stay alive as well as to give me a chance to like have some communication. Um, but what we have to figure out is how this involves somebody from the past, and I'm going to let that hang. I'm going to give the briefing. All right, everybody sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Riley Ramirez, you want to do this today? Believe me, you don't want to do this today, okay? I'm 942 days from retirement. I don't need this. What are you? 9,000? You want an early retirement party? Oh, yeah. No, we'll do snacks, everything. Lactose-free, pension-free. Sit down, morons. Now listen up. Keep your ears open today because we got a little bit of the usual and a little bit of the unusual. So none of that transcendental meditation bullshit. You hear me, Phillips? Yeah. Keep yourself on this plane of reality for this meeting, or else you and all your chakras are going to take a 2-day suspension. Now, listen. The usual. We got a new extremist cell. All right? But there's something to this one. Sure, they released a manifesto saying that they have emerged from, a slurry of civic despair, replicant rights, grievances, and old pre-blackout conspiracy. It doesn't matter. They're calling themselves the Red Light Communion. And what makes them different from the usual fringe is that they've managed to gather technical knowledge beyond what these street hooligans usually possess. And they're obsessed with the energy empire. Yes, for those of you who are potentially cultured enough to realize that there is something outside of Los Angeles, I'm talking about the energy empire, the massive labyrinthine mostly corporate-run nexus that manages power supply, off-world fuels, recycling banks, and this last one's important, Stevens, volatile reactor networks. Now, apparently, from what our sources tell, they believe the energy empire is the spinal cord of Wallace's influence in the city, which, in many ways, they're not wrong. If somebody could compromise that infrastructure, even symbolically, the entire city would know Wallace isn't untouchable. And that's our job. Yes, it is. Grow up if you don't think it is. Their Red Light Communion is planning something catastrophic, is what all intelligence sources indicate. Is it a riot? No, it's not a riot. You're gonna put out a bomb? No, it's nothing like that. Well, maybe it is. They're trying to put out a message, which the kind that hits the power grid and causes a blackout not seen from orbit. Now, LAPD has been working on this, but Wallace Corp is leaning on them and say that they think someone is running reconnaissance on the Energy Empire's subterranean coolant labs and, what the hell does this say? Mega flow regulators. All right? They can't trace the source. And they've been leaning on LAPD, insisting that they kick it up, but there's no evidence that it's replicants, and Wallace won't corroborate that. They won't even say replicant. All they say is rebel. Anyways, the brass finally has kicked it up, and that means us and you elite crime fighters. So, we're going to go there. We're going to start pounding pavement, and we're going to find out what's happening. But before that, Jorma, McDaniel, you're going to go to LAX. And I don't even understand this. Something about coolant. All right, listen. Here's the deal. There was a scanner at LAX Customs that read out one of the shipments had a large quantity of coolant that was heading off to the energy empire. All right, so what's the problem with coolant? Well, the problem is there was nothing about coolant on the manifestos. Now, it didn't raise any red flags because usually there does have to be some extra paperwork about coolant, but that's usually done on the shipping side, not receiving side. So it was business as usual to customs, and they even had their drivers send it to its destination. It was only later they realized that the manifesto said there was computer chips in there or something. All right. So this delivery guy, Ivan Molitor, he got domed on the head by a fizz stick, and when he woke up, he was on his truck bed, shackled up with nothing. No clothes, no coolant. Anyways, you gotta go to LAX. You gotta talk to this Ivan Molitor. Get any information he knows. Alright? The rest of you, I want you to lean on your contacts. I want you to... anybody who's undercover right now that you're aware of, I want you to go talk to them. There's gotta be a buzz about this. Find it. And there's a clock ticking on this, okay? Just, you don't need to know what the clock is or what happens when it chimes, but there's a clock. Dismissed. Not you, McDaniel. Come here. Yeah, what is it, boss? Kind of looks over his shoulder, make sure everyone gets out of the room. Yeah, up your ass, Ramirez. Jerk. Listen. You understand what I need you to do? Yeah, I do, but I'm a little bit confused. I thought you might be. Why is that? Well, because Emmanuelle, she went there 3 days ago, right? Wasn't she already on top of this? You're talking about it like it happened yesterday, but I thought we knew about this. Yes, Officer Holcroft did go 3 days ago, and she has not been heard from since. What do you mean she's not been heard from? She hasn't clocked in? Is she sick? No. We don't know what happened to her. But last place that her spinner picked up any sent a ping was the Energy Empire. So we need to figure out what's happening now, because her car, it was found in one of the drain ditches, and her badge, it's gone. So this I need you to handle on your own, you understand? Do you understand? Do you? You there, sitting at home, think you're just gonna watch a YouTube video? You think you're not gonna actually play the campaign? You know, you must be just like Riley and Ramirez.